Wind slapped grit against the boards as the rider swung down, boots sinking into dust that had not known footsteps in years. The gate hung crooked, one hinge groaning like a dying steer. Jonas Hale pushed it aside with a slow hand, eyes sharp beneath the shadow of his hat. The ranch lay hollow, the bones of fences leaning, roof shingles rattling like loose dice in the gale. The door gave under his palm with a whine. Darkness swallowed him, cool and stale, the smell of ash and rot thick as old sorrow. His spurs rang against warped floorboards. He thought it empty, until a shape shifted by the hearth. A girl. She rose from the shadows barefoot, dress torn at the hem, hair falling wild over her shoulders. No tremble in her stance, no flinch in her gaze. Her voice cut the silence like a knife. "You're going to sleep with me." Jonas froze where he stood, the words hanging heavy, strange. The fireless hearth cracked in the draft, boards sighing under their weight. He saw her eyes, sharp, unyielding, though rimmed with the weariness of hunger and fear. His hand brushed the butt of the Colt on his hip. Her stare followed the motion, yet she did not step back. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and spoke again, lower, fiercer. "I said you will." The wind battered the shutters, one slamming shut with a bang that startled neither of them. Jonas drew a breath, his chest tight. The air between them smelled of dust and old smoke. "Who are you?" His voice was gravel, rasped by years of silence. Her jaw set. "Eliza." Nothing more. They stood locked in that dim room, the creak of the roof and the moan of the wind, the only witnesses. Jonas searched her face, waiting for weakness, for plea, for something that would make sense of her words. None came. He stepped closer, boots slow measured. Her chin lifted, eyes never wavering. "Why here?" he asked. Her fingers curled into fists at her side. "Because they won't look for me here. Because this place is dead." She paused, and her voice dropped, a whisper edged in steel. "Until you walked in." Jonas turned his gaze to the broken rafters above, the dust swirling in golden shafts through the cracks. The ranch had been meant as a tomb for his silence. Instead, it breathed now with her defiance. Outside, the storm rattled a loose shutter like a warning. Inside, the girl's words still burned the air between them, strange as prophecy, sharp as demand. And though Jonas said nothing more, his hand slid from the Colt at his side. For the first time in years, the old weight of choice pressed heavy against his heart. The rifle clattered against the table as Eliza dropped it, breath ragged from the weight. Jonas caught it before it slid to the floor, his jaw tight. She wiped sweat from her brow with the back of her wrist, eyes fixed on the window. "They'll come," she said. The shutters rattled as if agreeing. Jonas set the rifle back down, slow and careful. "Riders." His voice was low. Her nod was quick, sharp. "6, maybe more. Always circling, always looking." She pressed a finger to the glass pane where the desert stretched, endless and burning. "They'll smell you here same as me." Jonas followed her gaze. The horizon wavered in the heat, but he saw it, dust rising faint and thin, like a warning too far to ignore. He turned away, found the whiskey bottle in the corner, poured into a chipped cup. The liquid trembled as his hand lifted it. Eliza's stare bore into him. "You're just going to drink?" Jonas swallowed hard, the burn scratching down his throat. He set the cup down, slow, deliberate. Not yet. The room was thick with silence. Outside, a hawk screamed, circling high above the dying ranch. Eliza snatched the rifle back, fumbling with the lever. Jonas watched her arms shake, her jaw clenched with stubborn fire. "You're holding it wrong." She glared at him, daring him to step closer. He did, boots heavy on the warped floor. His hand brushed hers, adjusting her grip, the barrel steadying under his touch. "Like this," he muttered. Her breath quickened, but she didn't flinch. She leaned into the weight, sighting through the window toward the wavering horizon. "Pull too hard. You'll break your shoulder," he said. "I don't care." Jonas studied her face, the raw edge of fury there, the hunger for vengeance. He saw himself in it, years ago, before graves and vows. The Colt at his hip seemed heavier, as if remembering blood. The shutters banged again, louder this time. Both turned their heads toward the sound. The horizon's dust cloud was thicker now, undeniable. Eliza whispered, almost to herself, "They found us." Jonas reached past her, closed the shutter with a hard snap, plunging the room into dim light. Her hands trembled on the rifle, but her voice stayed steady. "You'll fight," she said, not as question but command. Jonas didn't answer. His silence was the only thing he had left to offer. Yet in the dark, his fingers lingered on the rifle longer than he meant to, as if the old weight knew it was coming back to him. Outside, hooves pounded faint across the desert floor, a steady drumbeat drawing closer. The ranch creaked beneath the wind, waiting for the storm of men. Gunfire cracked the silence, splinters bursting from the doorframe as Eliza dropped flat. The rifle clutched against her chest. Jonas answered with a single shot through the open shutter. A rider screamed, his body pitching sideways into the dust. The echo rolled across the barren land. Hooves thundered. Shadows streaked past the window. The scar-faced man at their head reined up, his voice booming. "Jonas the Reaper, thought you buried yourself. Seems the grave spit you back." Jonas crouched by the window, breath steady, Colt gleaming in his hand. Eliza's eyes widened, the name hanging heavy in the air. "You know him," she whispered. Jonas didn't look at her. He pulled the hammer back slow, the click loud as church bells. Another rider leaned from his saddle, pistol flashing. Jonas fired once. The outlaw toppled, blood soaking the sand. Eliza scrambled to the doorway, bracing the rifle on the frame. Jonas hissed, "Wait." But she already squeezed the trigger. The kick slammed her shoulder back, yet the shot found its mark. One horse shrieking, its rider crushed beneath. The men outside cursed, circling, smoking grit rising in the noon heat. "Cowards!" Scarface roared. His laugh cut across the storm. "You can't hold up forever, Reaper." Jonas wiped sweat from his brow, eyes narrow. He shoved a fresh round into the Colt. The years had not dulled his hand. Each movement precise, calm, deadly. "Stay down," he told Eliza. She shook her head, teeth clenched, reloading the rifle with trembling fingers. "I'm not running." The shutters blew open, a bullet zipping past her ear. Jonas spun, shot once, twice. Another outlaw folded in the dust. His shoulder jolted back a moment later, the burn of lead tearing flesh. Blood seeped through his shirt. Eliza cried out, dragging him from the window. His face stayed stone. "Keep steady," he rasped, pressing the Colt into her palm. Her hands shook, but she held it, the weight dragging her wrist low. Jonas' blood stained her dress as he gripped her arm, forcing her aim higher. The last rider thundered straight for the door, revolver blazing. Boards shattered, smoke filling the air. Eliza stood in the haze, Jonas leaning against her shoulder. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The Colt bucked, thunder exploding in her hand. The rider jerked back, toppled, and the dust swallowed him whole. Silence fell. Only the wind moved, carrying the stink of gunpowder across the ranch. Eliza's chest heaved. Jonas sagged against her, blood dripping steady onto the warped floor. She held the gun still raised, smoke curling from the barrel, her eyes fixed on the dust where the last man had fallen. The ranch groaned, alive again, the boards echoing with what had just been done. Blood slicked the floorboards where Jonas leaned, his breath shallow, the Colt slipping from his fingers. Eliza caught it before it hit the ground, the steel still warm, smoke curling faint from the barrel. "Hold it," he rasped. Her hands tightened. His eyes, gray as storm clouds, fixed on her with a weight heavier than the years behind him. "You killed him," Jonas whispered. "You ended it." Eliza stood over the open doorway, the desert beyond glowing with the fire of dawn. Bodies lay broken in the dust, their shadows long and crooked. The silence was thick, broken only by the flap of a loose shutter and the moan of wind across the plains. Jonas tried to rise, but his leg buckled. She steadied him, but he waved her hand away, lowering himself to the chair by the cold hearth. "You don't need me now," he muttered. Eliza turned, her hair whipping in the draft, her voice sharp as the crack of her rifle. "I needed you to fight, and you did." She lifted the Colt, weighted in her palm. It felt different now, not borrowed, not foreign, her own. Jonas watched her in silence, a ghost of the Reaper in his gaze. For the first time, he let his shoulders sink, as though he'd laid something down that had haunted him too long. The sun climbed higher, light spilling across the ruined ranch, gilding the edges of the broken boards. Eliza stepped into that light, the revolver at her side, her dress stained with blood and dust. She did not look like prey any longer. Jonas' voice cracked. Horses wind through canyon stone. This land, it's yours now. She did not answer. Instead, she walked through the doorway, her boots crunching over blood in the dirt. She stood over the fallen men, her shadow long across their bodies. The horizon stretched before her, endless, waiting. Jonas closed his eyes, the creak of the ranch groaning above him. The girl's words from the first night returned to him, strange no longer. You're going to sleep with me. Not a bargain of flesh. A burden shared. A fire kept alive. Outside, Eliza raised the cold high, smoke and sun swirling together in the morning air. The ranch no longer lay empty. It belonged to her now, and to the story that had just been born. And so it was told, years after, by men hunched over whiskey and by grandmothers of the fireside. How the Reaper laid down his gun, and a girl no one expected lifted it, her voice as fierce as the desert wind. They say if you pass the old ranch when the night is still, you can hear her words carried on the boards and through the dust. You will.